Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Glow. I'm thrilled to have a very special guest with me today, Nate Graves, an incredibly talented tattoo artist from Sacred Tattoo Studio right here in Marquette, Michigan. Nate has earned a stellar reputation for his creativity and skill, and I've had the honor of working alongside him on many projects where laser tattoo removal meets tattoo artistry. Together, we help clients refresh their canvas and make space for amazing new pieces. In this episode, we'll dive into Nate's artistic journey, how we collaborate to create beautiful transformations, and what it's like to blend science with creativity in the world of tattoos. Let's glow. So welcome to the show, Nate.
Thank you. That was a very flattering introduction. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here.
Well, and I have to say he's also a tattoo artist that I see and trust as well. So yeah, thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you.
Well, let's dig in. So how did you first get started as a tattoo artist, and what drew you to this form of art?
Yeah, so this could certainly be a much longer conversation, but I'll try to give you the summarized version. I grew up in a small town in central Illinois, and I grew up skateboarding and listening to heavy music, and both of those cultures are absolutely permeated with tattoos. As a young teenager, everybody around me that's 18 and up is covered in tattoos, so it was very much an aesthetic that I was drawn to at a very young age. The art side of things kind of came second for me. It was really the culture of the tattoo lifestyle and industry that was really attractive to me.
Right.
But through that, I met a lot of people that were involved in tattooing. Those relationships over the years ended up blossoming into me being offered an apprenticeship at a very young age. I was 6 months out of high school.
Wow.
And it was really a...
Hang on a second. I'm picturing myself 6 months out of high school. If I got an apprentice gig at a tattoo shop, I would have felt really cool. A lot of my friends were in punk rock bands. You know, like one of my first concerts was Pantera.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, like I said, it's very much who you know. I think a lot of industries really are that way, but it was right place, right time, as well as being willing to take a leap of faith. Like, I was offered this opportunity, but they called and said, hey, if you can move to Chicago in 2 weeks, the spot's yours.
Wow.
I'm 18, I'm working, at a fast food restaurant. I don't have a lot of money. And I basically sold everything that I owned that I could get money for. I packed my car with what was left and I went.
Amazing.
But I was really fortunate because the owner of the shop, who was my mentor, his name's Jose Perez Jr., he was amazing. I mean, he took me under his wing in every capacity. He treated me like a little brother in a lot of ways, took care of me way above and beyond what would be asked of him as a mentor. But he was very analytical and very process-driven, which allowed him to really break down tattooing into a bit of a science. He could really teach me step by step, and it was an amazing foundation for me.
Well, and hearing about how you started, I'm not surprised to hear that, actually, because your technique is, again, it's not like a happenstance. This is just, I'm just going to go in and, guns blazing with the tattoo gun and really nail them, kind of thing. You have a very unique style. And it's your artwork is beautiful.
Well, thank you.
It's absolutely beautiful. And I can't wait for my next piece. So, with that being said, with tattooing being such a unique art form and so vast in styles, how would you describe your personal style versus me just saying, oh, it's beautiful? Really,
Sure.
How do you describe it?
So for me, I kind of exist on the opposite end of two spectrums. I do a lot of American traditional, which is really where my love for tattooing started. That's what I was seeing a lot of as a young man, what a lot of my friends were getting, and what I just thought tattoos looked like. And then I walk into this shop and start working with Jose, where he does black and gray realism all of the time. And so I was taught how to tattoo through that lens. And it wasn't until I'd been tattooing for quite a few years that my clinical knowledge and my technical ability were finally able to meet. And so maybe around the 6-7 year mark of my career, I moved into doing a lot of realism. As I started doing that, I started getting recognized for it. I started getting better at it. I think with a lot of things in life, the things that you're good at, you tend to enjoy. And so the further I leaned into it, the more people recognized me for it, and the cycle was perpetuated, So most of my workload now is black and gray realism or surrealism.
Surrealism. And really, for our listeners out there, how can they view some of your work?
So obviously social media is the number one way. My Instagram is Nate Graves Tattooer. And most of the body of work you're going to see there is black and gray. I do definitely enjoy still dabbling in traditional stuff. And so you're going to find some of that as well. But yeah, that's really the best way to do it.
Yeah. And really just taking a scroll on his Instagram page, you're going to be like, whoa, that's magazine worthy. Now, oh, that one's magazine worthy. And I'm not just saying this because you're my friend too,
right?
But it's because you truly do have such a unique style. And again, it's just beautiful.
Thank you.
So getting to also, we've collaborated on several clients here at Glow Laser Aesthetics.
Yeah, we sure have.
And we collaborate on clients who want to fade an existing tattoo. So, how does this process, in your opinion, benefit your work as an artist? And what advice would you give to clients considering this route if they have an unwanted piece?
Sure. So I would say since we first started working together, which has been 4 years, almost 5 years together now, I have this conversation all of the time. I would say multiple times a week, sometimes more. And the biggest thing for me, especially with black and gray, is the style of work that I do and most tattoos demand that you leave some amount of skin tone. There needs to be some breathing room as well as contrast in a piece. And unfortunately with cover-ups, generally you're going to make so many concessions in the design to accommodate that cover-up that the tattoo just simply cannot be the best version of itself, right? And for all the years prior to laser really breaking onto the scene and becoming a reasonable thing to pursue for people, cover-ups were your only option. And so people just made it work. And now I almost just don't see a reason to do cover-ups when this is a possibility.
Right.
I tell people very often who come in and they have that anxious impatience. They really are unhappy with what they have. They want to get it gone. I start to talk to them about Glow and what you can do for them. And they're often dismissive, right? Because they realize like, oh, this is going to be expensive. Oh, this is going to take a long time. But what I tell them often is you don't really get a third chance.
Right.
If you get a tattoo on top of your existing tattoo that you are not happy with, the road back is much, much longer. Right?
Absolutely. And on that note too, because I do have clients that we are now lasering like double and triple cover-ups.
Right.
Because it went from bad to worse to even worse to where they just are so unhappy. Well, here's the thing. Every tattoo is unique because of how your body's going to clear the distribution of ink into the skin. So think like silo of ink into the skin versus surface area. I've had ring tattoos take longer to remove than full sleeves.
Sure.
Because surface area isn't the issue. It's the silo of ink. So when you have cover-ups, over cover-ups and you have those added silos of ink into the skin, plus the chemical compound of the ink is a variance too. So not all ink reacts the same. With that being said, I can blast over the ink, but those other tattoos might show up for a while because they're not going to just remove at the same pace in general.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of a mess, to go down that route. And then, I've had cover-ups done. I actually have 3 cover-ups on my body. I do tattoo removal because I love tattoos and I think people should get better, not because I hate tattoos.
Right.
I have been questioned about that. And then I, roll up my sleeves a little bit and they're like, oh, okay. So I'm all about us all getting the work that we want to represent on our skin. The rule of thumb I've always heard, and I don't know if this is totally true, but for a cover-up, because if you do not laser first, you have to essentially lose the old image or old tattoo in the new tattoo. So oftentimes you're looking at 3 times the size or more of that old tattoo on average. Is that accurate? Or
I would say with the just amazing technical abilities of artists today that's not really a hard and fast rule anymore. I think a lot of artists in the past have defaulted to that the bigger the thing, the more disguised the existing piece is. But now with the quality of ink and again, just the technical application, fully saturated color, very detailed tattoos, as well as compositional tricks are really effective in cover-ups. but it's really tricky and difficult, you know?
Yeah. And, the tattoo artist that's doing your cover up needs to really know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Obviously, you see more awful stuff than I do.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I see everyone's tattoos, especially, we're here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's a fairly rural type of community and everything. Yep. Fun fact, just in my own Google searches, and I don't know if you know anything different than this, but I found tattooers with shops, like a shop entity, or sometimes people are kind of like rogue and doing their own thing too. I found 27 in the Upper Peninsula, either shops or individual
private
people,
studios,
doing tattoos. So depending on where even some of my clients live, because I have people come all the way from Green Bay, all the way from below the bridge.
Yeah, surprise.
All that, and I'm starting to get, because now I'm almost 5 years in doing this. I can almost guess by looking at what they want removed and where they live, who did it. Sometimes people get really great work done, like removed, because it might represent a painful time in their life, or
definitely
something that they just don't want to be reminded of. Or on the flip side, I happen to laser a lot of tattoo artists because your taste changes or you run out of real estate.
Yeah. Or we got tattooed at a very, very young age. You're not always the brightest when you're 18.
Yeah, my tattoos would probably be a different choice with some of my older work too.
Certainly,
if it was the pushing 50 version versus the, first tattoo at 17,
right,
kind of thing. I love it. So, my next question leads into now where you're at now. So Sacred Tattoo Studio has an amazing reputation, not only in Marquette, but way beyond.
Yeah.
Way beyond. So what makes the studio stand out as far as the other artists that you work with? Tell me about the synergy in the shop.
Yeah. So I've been at Sacred now for 9 years. It'll be 10 years this next summer. And I honestly have to give all of the credit to Dan Pemble. The shop just hit its 15th anniversary.
Amazing.
Which is incredible. And it all comes down to the environment that Dan has fostered. I think when I first came into the shop, it was much smaller. I think there was only 3 of us tattooing there at the time. And it was just clear that there was something different about it, right? It's almost hard for me to quantify exactly what that is, but just the respect, the camaraderie, the expectation of the standard of service and the standard of output, the quality of the work that we're doing. He has really curated multiple times in multiple iterations of the shop over the years, just incredible teams of tattooers, right? I think that myself, I came from downstate where I lived previously. We've had people come from as far as Tennessee to work in the shop.
Right.
And so generally when we're bringing artists into the shop, we are bringing them in from other places. Dan just has an amazing, how do I put it? He just is a good judge of character and has always managed to put together a really rock solid team that has created an environment that's fun to be in, that is really conducive to us all growing and learning and supporting one another artistically,
right,
and just as people, and I think that when the clients step into that space, they can feel that.
Absolutely. And, coming from, the side where I am not a stranger to tattoos, and I personally have been tattooed in many different shops all over the place. And when you walk into Sacred, it feels more like an art gallery.
Yeah.
To me, it feels more like an art gallery. It feels very professional. It looks very professional. It's incredibly clean. I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. So even in my younger years, because my original stint through school, because if you look up the poster child of like how to waste a colossal amount of money going to college and changing gears like 5 times.
Yeah.
Biology, chemistry, forensic science, that was me. So I was always really cognizant on, pathology, things like that. So I was always really nuts about, I wanted to be the first person in the morning at a tattoo shop when I was getting tattooed.
Yeah.
I want to open all of my stuff, my tubes, my needles, everything. And if you can't provide that to me, I'm not going to go to your shop.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the early years, a few times before I learned all that, looking back at some of the shops I've been to, there's no way. Like, Phil, it's like what you imagine in an Easy Rider magazine way back in the day with this biker shop type of tattoo shop
Smoking
where
cigarettes
they got the long cigarette butt hanging out of their mouth and it's ashing on the floor and everyone's just dropping the F-bomb like crazy. Just filthy. And nothing against the biker tattoo shops. I love those too. But it's the dirty ones that, that's what a lot of people, I think, get in their mind what a tattoo shop is going to be. I feel like Sacred is completely different. I mean, it reminds you of like a beautiful art gallery.
Yeah, and that's very intentional, right? Mm-hmm. Much like yourself, I actually really, really love the kind of stereotypical tattoo shop vibe where you have flash paintings from the floor to the ceiling. Every square inch of the shop is covered in artwork. And where it's a little bit rough and tumble, maybe a little bit counterculture, It's
like a throwback
absolutely,
to where it started.
And I do love that. Yeah. And I love getting tattooed in those shops. I have plenty of friends that work in those shops. But here at Sacred, like we made a very conscious effort. Dan made a conscious effort to do something different. It's a breath of fresh air for a lot of people. You can see people that walk in for the first time that are pretty shocked. It's just not what they were expecting, especially if they are there for their first tattoo. It exceeds expectations.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Cool. So let's kind of shift to some of the work that you've done. Great. So I want to hear what's one of the most challenging pieces you've ever done? And like, how did you overcome the challenge to create something, beautiful and amazing for your client?
Man, this is a really tough question because people ask all the time, like, what have you been working on that you're really enjoying? Or what's your favorite tattoo you've ever done? And those are just kind of difficult questions to answer. Yeah. I think the project that I point to the most often when this conversation comes up is actually on a mutual client of ours, who I recently did a cover up on that you had lasered quite a few times. But it is...
the Tinkerbell.
It's the Tinkerbell tattoo.
That darn Tinkerbell.
I know. She's gone now, thankfully. But it's actually the Lord of the Rings leg sleeve that I did on that same client. It's one thing to do a tattoo that's on one visual plane that you can look at and you see it and cool, there's a tattoo. But to do a fully wrapping sleeve is obviously a much larger undertaking and a lot more complicated because you have to figure out how to connect all the dots and how to not leave any visible seams in a sleeve, right? Where everything flows from one design to the next, even across many sessions. That project for me was over 100 hours of work. Wow. Which is just an immense undertaking for both people. I think it just pushed the boundaries of what I was technically capable of, what I was capable of design-wise and in the composition. And it just really was a labor of love for both myself and the client. It came out in a way that we're both very proud of it. So that's definitely at the top of my list.
Yeah, and it turned out beautifully. So I happen to know this person as well, and I saw her at the gym, and she's like, "Oh my God, I have to show you." So even seeing the work in person versus on your Instagram page,
very different thing.
I mean, even in person, I was like, because I'd seen it, but again, when you're looking at something more like 2D,
right?
When she's actually like moving her leg, and I'm like, "Wow, that's magnificent." And she's so thrilled. She is so thrilled with it. And she's one of these people that she can definitely work at like that type of tattoo that just embodies like, her hobbies, her love, her, she's very into reading. I mean, just everything. It just is, it's her. Yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, she was an absolute treat to work with. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
It's back at the beginning.
Yeah. When I see you next month, we're going to start on my leg.
I know. I'm very excited. You say next month, but it's like weeks away now.
It's weeks. I haven't been tattooed in a while.
Yeah.
And I feel like the older I get, the more of an aversion to pain I get.
That's fair. Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. Here I am daily. I'm doing multiple laser treatments on people, whether it's hair removal, tattoo, everything. I'm always like, okay, this isn't going to be too bad. I'll walk you through it because, come on, tattoo removal is a little spicy.
That's a great word for it, yeah.
It's spicy. It's like hot rubber band snaps, but it's super fast. So, but really coming back to me, like, so for like 3 years now, you're like, okay, when are you going to get on my schedule? Yeah. My schedule's like booked out, but when are you going to get on my schedule? And I'm finally like, okay, it's time. So yeah, it is a couple weeks away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to freak myself out over. Because also I did hear from others with the style I'm going to have you do on me. So you're almost
Very
like,
different. Yeah.
can you want to tell me about that just a little bit?
Yeah. So I think most people, when they think about the process of tattooing, they think, okay, here's a picture I'm putting on my skin. Maybe it's the size of a hand. I'm going to do the outline. I'm going to go do the black shading, and then I'm going to put color in there if it's a color tattoo, right?
Yeah.
The style of work that I do is very different, namely because I don't use line work in my tattoos at all. Everything with realism is done via contrast. Everything is done with shading. So
Right.
if you were to time lapse a tattoo that I did, for example, it would very much look like a printer. I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to render an area completely and then move on to the next and the next until it is a fully rendered image. That changes both the single session process and the large scale process, like that leg sleeve, because I'm not going to outline your whole arm in a day, right? If you get a large scale Japanese sleeve, if you get a traditional sleeve, if you get an illustrative sleeve, most often artists are going to line that whole project out in a day and leave themselves the foundation to build everything else on top of. For me, I mentioned visual planes. I usually work one visual plane at a time. So if we were doing your sleeve, I would do your inner forearm, your outer forearm, your upper bicep, and that would be our day. And then we would build on that session by session as we go. So it's much more incremental. It's also just by the nature of the style, it's a lot less, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just less invasive.
Yeah.
Generally, the healing is very easy. And my clients sit for a long time. I do a lot of back-to-back day sessions, both for traveling clients and local clients who just want to get their projects done quickly. We'll tattoo for 12 to 14 hours in 2 days. And I haven't had someone tap out on me in years.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. You might be the first.
I just get into my head.
I know.
Well, and that's the thing too, is we do have so many mutual clients that are getting really large pieces done from you or one of the other amazing artists in your shop. But then they're also working on a cover-up process. So they're coming here to laser and then they're going there. And we've even had people come and be like, okay, we're taking a lunch break and I'm going to come and get zapped real quick on a different part of my body. And then I'm going back. And it's been cool to see, because I'm always like, hey, can I see what you guys are working on? It's cool. Working with mutual clients. So because you guys do have so many that come from elsewhere. And again, because you're known way beyond the Upper Peninsula, you guys go to a lot of conventions.
Right.
And Dan Pemble also specifically, he has been part of being featured artists and speakers.
Yeah, a lot of conferences and things like that he's spoken at, because to my benefit, he's also an amazing teacher. He's also quite process driven and just very articulate. And yeah, he's helped a lot of young tattooers grow. So
do you guys have any conferences coming up that you're going to or conventions coming up that you're going to?
I think that we have nothing on the books right now, which is the first time in many, many years that we don't. We usually have done 5 or 6 conventions a year.
Wow.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're traveling even 5 days a month, it feels like, oh man, I was just on the road.
Right.
So he has kids. I have a young kid at home and it just feels more cumbersome to leave right now. Yeah.
I try to go to something each quarter, but sometimes it's like, you commit to these things and then you're like, oh man, this kind of grasps my style a little bit. So I get it. So going back to some of your clients that you've worked with, being that tattoos can be so deeply personal and symbolic. Do you mind sharing a story about a particular tattoo that you worked on that stands out to you in this capacity?
Sure. Man, that's another tough question because, a lot of them come to mind, and obviously I don't want to share anything too personal to an individual, but obviously this often comes in the form of portraits, whether it's people that have been lost or whether it's pets. I think I do a lot of pet portraits for people, which is always a treat, right? Like it can be such an incredibly healing thing for someone to just be able to go through that experience. Partially is healing, but then being able to wear that and look at that person or that pet and carry it with them in a way that really nothing else in life offers you that besides a tattoo, I think is just incredibly powerful. And there's been a lot of times where we finish something, even a small tattoo. It's not always a portrait. It's not always elaborate. Sometimes it's dad's handwriting from a birthday card. Sometimes it's a small flower to represent their mom or grandmother. And a lot of times after that, you'll see a huge release. These people will be brought to tears after that process because it is just powerful. It's really hard to explain that without being there, without seeing it. But it is honestly really an honor and privilege to get to share that experience with someone, to have someone trust you with something that personal to them is huge. So I'm always really honored when people ask me to do stuff like that.
Absolutely. Oftentimes they're sharing something personal and telling you their story, with tribute tattoos and things like that and memorial tattoos. But in general, you could probably write books upon books about interesting conversations. It's almost like the Taxi Driver reality shows and how people tell their story and how it's just really interesting because every one of us has a story.
Yeah, very much so.
I've seen so many clients in medical aesthetics, and then before this, being an exercise physiologist and working with clients in different capacities. We're all onions. Every one of us is a beautiful onion, even though some of us look bruised and battered on the outside and may have a few prickly spots or look a little scary. You peel back a layer or two and you just realize we all want the same things. We want to be valid and seen and important, heard. We want to be happy. And even the most scary, badass biker dude still wants to know that they're loved and important and seen. So really getting a chance to break down those barriers and just get to know people a little bit. I mean...
it's one of the greatest boons of the job for me. Yeah. Right? I spend immense amounts of time with people. Sometimes I'll spend 2 full work days consecutively with an individual. You have a lot of time to talk. With projects like that leg sleeve I mentioned where we spent 100 hours together tattooing that leg, right? That's a lot of time, and you cannot help but form bonds and friendships with these people. Like you said, the stories you get to hear. I sit in that chair and I tattoo all day long, and my story doesn't change much, but I get a constantly revolving cast of people that come in, and I get to hear about everyone else's life. And I'm sure, as you know, when people are passionate about things, even if it's not something that is, speaks to you necessarily, listening to people with genuine passion is so cool.
Yeah.
And when they get to share their hobbies or what they do for a career or anything like that. There's no shortage of interesting things coming through the door.
Oh, yeah. It's like that thing where when someone is so passionate about something, even if it's something that you never even knew existed,
right? That
excitement and that energy they bring, I feel like it just really reinvigorates my own passion for what I do.
Definitely.
It's like all ships rise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of that thing. So... I love it. What advice would you give to someone looking to start their journey as a tattoo artist, especially, in developing skill style? Where would they start?
Yeah. So this is, again, another tough question. You keep hitting me with the tough questions, Jamie. There's really not a clean answer to this because tattooing is something that, at least up to this point, has been always kind of generationally handed down, right?
Yeah.
It is mentor takes on apprentice, gives them this great gift of tattooing, takes them under their wing, teaches them the artistic side, the technical side, the business side of things, and then kind of lets them fly from the nest. So I can speak to my own experience and that of my peers that I know. Unfortunately, most tattooers had a crash course in what not to do. They were able to get their foot in the door somewhere, and they took that opportunity to get in and were ultimately more or less self-taught. By avoiding the pitfalls of their coworkers and the people around them. I had the rare experience where I was really given a very traditional, very great apprenticeship. But that isn't something that you can just sign up for, right? I think about myself, for example. I've been tattooing now for almost 15 years, and I feel that desire to pass this on to somebody else. I feel like I could be a good teacher to somebody, but it has to be the right person to pour yourself into in that way, to give them a gift like this. It's not just going to be somebody that walks off the street and asks. It's not going to necessarily be someone that just has the talent. It's just a lot of pieces have to fall into place. So I would say to make yourself the best candidate possible, have a great artistic foundation. I think that we've moved beyond the time of, I'm getting into tattooing because I think tattooing is cool and I'll learn to draw along the way. I think there are so many tattooers now that are moving into this space with a rich history and art background, right? Maybe they went to art school. Maybe they are oil painters, illustrators.
Now, Dan Pamble has a background in art, right?
Yeah, illustration actually from
Yeah.
NMU here. And it served him incredibly well,
Yeah.
right? He's obviously gifted, but he's also well-learned.
Yeah.
And that plus his time in the industry has just made him
Yeah,
a
exactly.
force.
Even with what I do, you can have all the pieces of paper, but if you're not truly a lifelong student
Yeah.
and humble yourself to know that the more you know, the more you need to know.
Yeah.
It's an endless cycle. If you get to the top of that mountain and you think that's it, you're just not looking behind you and seeing the other mountains that are emerging because
We talk about that all the time at the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm much more confident and thought I had a better grasp on things in year 3 than I do at year 15. That is for certain.
isn't that funny how that happens?
Yeah.
And truly, that's not everyone looks at it that way. And I'm not saying what our view on it is right and theirs is wrong, but I feel that the movers and shakers in any industry that involves like that human touch and that applying knowledge to get an outcome of some sort, whether it's medical aesthetics or tattooing, anything
Right.
like that. If you just become stagnant, you're just going to be doing the same thing you always did. But if someone says, why do you do this? Oh, because I always did it.
Right.
If that's the further you can explain, then I highly recommend reaching out and going to some of these conventions, sharing ideas with other people in the industry, just really going back and polishing, because there's always more to learn.
Yeah.
Always.
And this really goes back to the culture of the shop where I'm at. Like they say iron sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm.
And that is actually, I think, the best analogy for what has bred sacred success over all these years is that none of us accept stagnance from the others or from
Right.
ourselves, right? So like you said, all ships rise, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all push ourselves and it pushes each of the others to step up to that same level. And we're also all critical in a very healthy way of one another. We ask questions, we offer advice. And I just think that that's absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
For anything, right? For what you do, for what I do, for any industry, really.
Well, and on the flip side of that, too, you ask for advice and how well are you willing to take the advice?
Yeah.
It
It can be tough, especially in a creative career.
Well, it's like they're calling your baby ugly.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes your baby's ugly.
I'm sorry, there are some ugly babies. But yeah, it's like we take that so personally, especially when, we do pour our heart and soul into what we're doing and
Yep.
super passionate, but sometimes that can be a tough pill to swallow, but ultimately will serve you in the long run.
Yeah. And if you have the right people around you, you can always trust that they're looking out for you.
Yeah,
right?
that they're not
doing it
calling
for
your baby
interest.
ugly to be mean.
Right.
It's because they care. And
Right.
it's like the iron sharpens iron. I love
Exactly.
that. So really, looking ahead, are there any emerging trends in the tattoo world or artistic styles you're excited about exploring in the future?
Yeah. So I think what has really emerged in the last couple of years is things that are way outside the realm of what people are used to seeing. And the thing that comes to mind for me is my good friend Jacob Sheffield. I've had the privilege of working alongside him and actually doing a collaboration with him some years back. And he has just skyrocketed into the forefront of this industry because he's doing something very unique, which is he uses, I know at least one of the programs is called ZBrush, amongst other 3D modeling programs. He's no longer drawing tattoos, right?
Okay.
I use an iPad. I draw in a program called Procreate. Lots of tattooers are still using paper and pencil. He's creating digital 3D models that he can light and texture and design anything in the entire world that he could imagine. And he is creating those images and tattooing those images.
Wow.
And it
Okay.
is like you couldn't imagine, both from a technical application and from a digital design space. It is just so unique to anything else that's going on right now. I know that he's not the only person doing that, but to have that kind of cross-platform knowledge, to step outside of the traditional, I'm going to draw a tattoo, and moving into that three-dimensional space is just fascinating and incredible.
That's really interesting.
So I don't know that I'm going to dip my toes in that.
Yeah.
The barrier to entry there seems quite high, but it is again, just really inspiring. It's very cool and very outside the box.
Yeah. Okay, on Instagram, there's all kinds of weird stuff that comes across.
Oh, yeah.
And since my iPhone is sitting here, I'm probably going to get a bunch of weird things popping up and presented to me now about tattooing because, yes, our phones are listening. So really I've seen these posts come across with a automated, like, tattoo machine. Have you seen those?
Sure, yeah.
Well, okay, do you remember the movie Idiocracy?
I've actually never watched it,
Oh my
believe
gosh.
it or not.
The Mike Judge movie,
yeah,
they
very
stick
familiar
their
with the
arm
premise.
into the machine, it tattoos them.
Yep.
But I mean, is that legit? It seems so
So
weird.
not yet. I know that in the last 10 or 15 years, there's been attempts at doing something like that. I actually recently saw the first one that I thought, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And it does the entire tattoo with pointillism, basically.
Oh,
As opposed to
gotcha.
pulling lines or shading, it does everything dot by dot.
Gotcha.
But on a small enough scale, when you zoom out, it
Yeah.
looks like a well-rendered tattoo. And so the examples that I saw were very small. They were tattoos that were
Yeah.
like smaller than the size of a playing card.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But they were quite impressive. There's so many elements to tattooing as a physical artist that seem difficult to overcome in a technological way. Skin, for one, every single client's skin is very different.
Absolutely.
And you always have to be malleable in that space to do what's right for the client's skin. And additionally, stretching. Like, if you don't stretch the skin when you tattoo it, the needle tends to just kind of bounce off. It'd be very hard to make clean lines or fully saturate pigment in the skin. So there are definitely some barriers to overcome that I think eventually we'll get there.
Yeah.
But I also think that experience is for a certain type of client, and it's not the average tattoo collector, because it is the human touch, the experience, the hours together that make it so alluring.
Yeah. I just thought it was like, whoa, this is weird. But I also look at those like driverless cabs and I think, no way would I get into
Yeah. Well, statistically, they're safer, right?
That's what they say. But so we're pretty sure we're not going to see, this automated tattoo service coming up anytime soon.
I think it'll be similar to laser, where, your industry existed, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
But it's only in maybe the last 5 years that things have really become practical in any sense, right?
More affordable for
More,
clients.
more effective,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Especially people like yourself who are pushing this kind of thing out there, right? The knowledge of what is happening biologically, what's happening with the technology, keeping up on the updates in that technology.
Right.
Like you said, continually learning. I think that is the stuff that has pushed all of this forward. And the other driving factor is that there was a want and need for tattoo laser removal.
Yeah.
Without the clients coming in your door, there's no reason to do it. So I think that if there is a clientele to get automated tattoos, that the technology might push forward, but I would kind of be surprised.
I would too, definitely.
Yeah.
And how we talked about continuing ed and everything, just for our listeners out there, I personally love to work on tattoo removal, especially for a cover-up. I absolutely love it, and I love to see the finished work. But when you get to a point where, in the United States, I did all of the top licensing and certifications I could. But again, when you get to a point where the more you know you need to know. So that caused myself and one of our nurses here to travel to Scotland to study with the physicist, Mike Murphy, who happened to be on the research team who invented the modern way of doing tattoo removal. And he opened the very first tattoo removal clinic in the world in 1990 in Glasgow, Scotland. So we've studied with him, and even now he's a great mentor of mine. And things change all the time. There's all this research continuing. And so when there are pivots and shifts, we do that, So it's super important. Okay, so how about this? I'm starting to see a trend of just clients coming in, and there's a lot of young people that are tattooing each other in homes, at parties, because they're buying tattoo guns off of like Amazon. You can buy tattoo guns on Temu.
Right.
I've discovered, along with ink, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
But there's this trend of these young people tattooing themselves, each other, And their tattooing, I see on like their faces, their necks, their hands.
Yeah.
What's going on here with that? Are you seeing this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we are. Obviously, we live in a college town, so there is quite a bit of that. We've covered up a lot of stick and pokes from the dorm rooms, but a lot of the kids love them. It's really hard for me to wrap my head around it, but in the industry as a whole, there has been some shift to, I don't really know what to call it, but to like dumbed down bad tattoos, intentionally bad tattoos have become pretty trendy, which is strange. I'm not sure if this is like social media pushing this and it just, again, being alluring to these young people for some reason. But yeah, well, I see it all over the place. And I'm very, very far removed from the average individual's opinion about tattoos.
Yeah.
So...
Well, yeah, it's like asking a Michelin star chef what they think of McDonald's 99-cent menu.
Right. It is. But having gotten my first tattoo as a stick and poke at 15 years old in a friend's basement, I also understand the draw to that experience, right?
And how you're super cool when you have your
You're so cool. And it's just like a little lawless. It's a little bit... You're not supposed to be doing it, and that makes it fun. But unfortunately, it went from doing it on your thigh or on your ankle to now they're doing it on their hands and faces and necks, which is quite a bold choice.
It is pretty bold. And thankfully, stick and pokes tend to remove pretty fast.
Yeah.
I've had some that were one and done. Yeah. I've had some take a little bit longer. And then on the flip side, because the person doing the tattoo or wielding the tattoo gun doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go really deep. And again, back to the silo of ink. Some have taken 15 sessions.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we're talking 150 to 300 a session, that little, weekend, hey, I'll get next in line. It's going to cost you some money if you don't want it to follow you the rest of your life. And there's a subgenre of clients that get professional work done on their faces, their necks, their hands, and it's very beautiful on a lot, but you obviously still have to understand that may limit society's perception of the way they view the person,
Definitely.
And I've seen a lot of, like I said, beautiful ink, I get it, but a lot of times it can hinder employment.
It comes up at the shop a lot because everybody has their line. And so for me, like, I would say my line is certainly my face. I have my neck and my hands tattooed. Yeah. They've been tattooed. I got my neck tattooed at 19.
Wow. But you're a tattoo artist, so people expect
but still
that.
Very young, right?
Yeah.
I really, really dove in. But because I've maintained this line of work that whole time, it's never hindered me. But tattooing my face is just that line that I won't cross, right? But for some people, that's any tattoo. For some people, that's a pierced ear. For some people, that's a visible tattoo. And it's just so interesting because people would look at me and be like, you have your, 75% of your body covered in tattoos. But I look at people and go, that's too far, right? And it's just funny because when we're being judgmental in those moments, you kind of have to remind yourself like, oh, that's just that person's line. And maybe those people are in a position where they can do that without consequence, or they have just accepted what comes with that.
I find more artistic professions, stylists, tattoo artists, what other one would be where it's almost not expected, but it's just like not shocking.
Sure. I mean, a lot of trades in general, right? I also found surprisingly in the medical field, it's become very common that like nurses and doctors have full sleeves.
Yeah.
I see it a lot in, I guess it would still be self-employed, like real estate. We tattoo a lot of people that are in real estate because they're running the show. This is their thing. They can still be professional.
Oh, absolutely. I know a ton of healthcare professionals that have lots of tattoos. I think personally for me, mine is where I still need to be able to cover it up if I'm like going to the bank and asking for,
Right. You want to be able to turn it off.
If I'm going to open another location or buy more layers, I need to be able to be like, okay, if my banker is old school, I don't want them to prejudge me by not fully seeing me and my potential.
Yeah. And as I've gotten older, that's become very real to me. Like Dan that I work with, he does not have his hands or his neck tattooed. He's owned an insanely successful tattoo shop for 15 years. He could do whatever he wanted, but exactly that same sentiment. Like, he wants to be able to turn it off. He wants to be able to go to his kids' parent-teacher conferences and put on a button-up shirt and, not be looked at or have his kids judged for the decisions that he's making. There's merit in that, definitely, especially after having my son. I've had to start to think about things a little bit differently, right? We go to the park and my wife and I look quite different than the other parents there with their young kids. And we don't want that stuff to reflect on our son, but, it's going to at some point.
Well, and then they find out who you guys are, and then they're like, oh, can I get an appointment?
Yeah, there are a lot of unsolicited consultations at the park nowadays.
I love it. So, just kind of wrapping up a little bit, I love that you came in and gave us your time today. I so appreciate it. Let's tell everyone how they can find you and find Sacred.
Yeah, Sacred Tattoo Studio is right in downtown Marquette on the main drag on Washington. And you can check us out on our website at sacredtattoostudio.com. And all of us have our Instagrams linked on the website there, but you can find me personally at Nate Graves Tattooer on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely give his page a look just to view some gorgeous work even. Yeah, I love it. And you said your books are opening again in December.
Yeah, my books will be opening December 1st. That'll be 4 appointments in January through March.
So you solicit applications for tattoo work?
Yep. So I do everything through my email. So new client submissions submit to the email on the date that my book's open. You'll get an auto response that just details my pricing and deposit policy, the information that I need from you, and then I go through those and book as many clients as I can in that 3-month window, and then rinse and repeat.
Nice. Now, if you're going through the process or interested in going through the process here at Glow for a laser fade to clean that up, typically we try to get it a 50% or more type of fade just to open up more possibilities for you. We really recommend that you wait a minimum of 8 weeks before you would get your tattoo after your last laser treatment.
Yeah.
So something to think about. Yes, it's a process. Yes, it costs a little more, but it is so much more worth it.
So I've been quite a few sessions with you now, and I've found even over 6 months to a year, I've seen things diminish further.
Yeah, but to have the best outcome, So the way you can reach me is glowmqt.com. Obviously, also in the podcast notes, there's lots of ways you can reach me as well. Well, that is a wrap on today's episode. I want to give a huge thank you to Nate Graves.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your expertise, and your passion for the tattoo industry. It's always inspiring to hear from someone so dedicated to their craft, and your ability to transform ideas into stunning pieces of art really is truly remarkable. And I'm a huge fan, obviously. So whether you're looking to get your first tattoo or add to your collection, Nate's work is definitely worth checking out. So thank you all so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone who's passionate about tattoos or might be interested in the art of tattoo transformation. Until next time, keep shining and let's glow.